And it's over to Rabbi David. There we go.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank my wonderful neighbor, Rabbi Levin, who, I don't know if you're aware, I recently lost my father, Rabbi Brock, was a big tzaddik, and Rabbi was a big nechama to me. He always came in every day and was menachem me. I'm very grateful. Just public hakaras hatov. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to share with you an idea. It's based on something that I heard from my father's Rabbi Brock, and also it's connected to subjects that are being discussed in the media recently. It's not that we trust the media anymore, but it's being discussed in the media. This week's Sedra, I think this week's Sedra has the most mitzvahs of any other Sedra. Right? This week's Sedra has the most mitzvahs, right? Among those mitzvahs are mitzvahs that look, how can I put it? If you look at them superficially, they look racist. The Sedra ends with Mechias Amalek, annihilate Amalek, right? Is the Torah racist? Is the Torah racist? Any feedback? Is the Torah racist?
We don't think so.
We don't think so, right? Okay, you're correct. Yeah, it's Torah. But we've got a mitzvah to annihilate Amalek, destroy a people. If the mitzvah was to destroy a people, then how come the Gemara tells us in Megillah that Mibnei Bonav Shel Haman Lam L'Torah B'nei Brak? The Haman was an Amaleki. He came from the nation of Amalek, and his children were Rabbonim in Eretz Yisrael. They became Gerim. How's that possible? If we're supposed to annihilate the nation, then how could you accept his children as Gerim? Right? And not only that, Nero, I mean, people might not be aware of this, but if Nero famously went mad and committed suicide, what he actually did was, the Gemara tells us, he became a Ger Tzedek, and his grandson was none other than Rav Meir. Can you imagine Hitler's grandson is one of the biggest Rabbonim? How does it work? So there's obviously a deeper meaning here, right? Then we've got the mitzvah just after Rabbi in Perikov Gimel Tas Ches. Sorry, just before that, just before Rabbi. We've got the mitzvah. We've got the prohibition against marrying somebody from Ammon or Moav, right? And the Torah is really strong in its language. The Torah says, what's the words? Sidra Shleim Kol Yemechem, don't have anything to do with them. But then we read Megillas Rus on Shavuos, and Rus came from Moav. So the Jewish royal family comes from a nation where the Torah says don't have any connection with them. So what's going on here? The people that the Torah is telling us not to have anything to do with are the people that their children and grandchildren became really prominent in our history. The royal family and Tanam and Amoraim and Haman's children. And then when it comes to what's really bothersome is that difficult to understand is that when it comes to Adoimi and a Mitri, it says, don't despise somebody for Adon, ki achichahu. Mitri, ki ger Yosef Artzai. Don't despise somebody from an Egyptian because you sojourned in their land, right? But we look at the history of what happened in Egypt. The slavery was terrible, and it was so cruel. They used to kill babies just to soak them, to soak the king in the blood. The level of cruelty was only matched by the Nazis. And it says, don't despise ministry. And after 3 generations, they can marry a Yid. So what's the measurement of who we're allowed to marry, who we're not allowed to marry? Who do you have to not despise, and who do you have to annihilate? It's obviously a much deeper meaning going on, deeper meaning to this whole thing. So if we delve a little deeper, you see the Pesukim seemingly don't make sense. It says, Lo yave Ammoni Moav b'kal Hashem. Someone from the nation of Ammon or Moav can't marry a Yid. Gamdar, even the 10th generation, Lo yave b'kal Hashem la'olam, can never ever marry a Yid. And then the Torah gives a reason. Al davar asher lekidmu eschem belechem man v'teischem Mitzrayim. They didn't give you bread and water when you came out of Mitzrayim, right? Now, number one, we didn't need the bread and water. We had the mom and the bear. Yeah? And what's the big deal if you're passing through a nation, they don't give you bread and water? It's not, is that a reason not to marry into that nation? Doesn't make sense. And then the pasuk carries on, and then it goes on. What the Malvin went on to do, they basically hired a sorcerer to curse us, and they want to annihilate us. So the primary reason is because they didn't give us bread and water, which we didn't even need. And the secondary reason is because they wanted to annihilate us. Does that make sense? So it's like saying to somebody, "Oh, don't have anything to do with him because he didn't offer you an ice cream when it was a hot day, and also he wanted to stab you in the back." Does it make sense? Doesn't make sense at all, does it? And then if we return to Amalek, the pasuk says the Koresh is also from Amalek. Yeah, but everybody knows that Amalek came out to destroy us, right? But the apostle carries Ashikocha, but there was then and then we have to absolutely wipe out the memory of Amalek. Have to wipe out the memory. What did Amalek do? What did Amalek do? Amalek came out to battle with us when we came out of Mitzrayim, and everybody knows we were protected by the nano cupboard. So any weapons that were fired towards the Yidden were absorbed by the nano cupboards. So what did Amalek do? What damage did they do to the Yidden? Didn't do anything, did they? So the pasuk says, all Amalek did was there were few Yidden that were not on. They obviously weren't on the Madrega. Because of their averas, whatever it was, they weren't able to be in the Nana covered. There were 600,000 men between 20 and 60, so that's probably about 3 million Yidden, and probably at an estimate, half a dozen were outside the Nana covered, maybe half a dozen Yidden who weren't directly in the Nana covered, right? And Amalek went for them. So why is it so bad? He went for the few Yidden. Nowadays we call them, the Scotsmen, yeah? So why is it so bad? What did they do already? They harmed a handful of them. And because of that, they have to be completely and utterly annihilated. Mm-hmm. Why should that be? They didn't harm the actual Klal Yisrael, didn't do anything to us. They tried, but they only managed to get a few people that were very, very weak in Yiddishkeit. So I had a beautiful word from my father, and it's a fundamental point that we have to internalize in our life. The Gemara Megillah says, Haman Menatayim Menayim. Where did we find Haman mentioned in the Torah? So the Gemara answers, there's a pasuk that says, Hamin ha'etz hazeh, did you eat from that tree? And that's talking about the story of when Adam Rishon was in Gan Eden, and Hashem asked him, did you eat from the tree that I forbade you to eat from? Right? So you've got the same three letters, you've got Haman and you've got Hamin, right? But otherwise, what's the connection? What's the connection between the Eitz Hadas and Haman? Why is it such a fundamental teaching? And seemingly there's no explanation as to what the connection is, besides the fact that they got the three similar letters. So Father's prayer bracha, and may this Josh be little Shmasa said told me a beautiful pshat. He said that when Adam Rishon was in the Gan Eden, you can't imagine how beautiful Gan Eden was. It was the beauty and the joys and the pleasures that there were in Gan Eden were unbelievable. And there must be thousands upon thousands of trees that Adam Rishon could eat from. And something pushed him, and sometimes just from that one tree, don't eat from that one tree. So basically had every kind of pleasure that a human being could enjoy. And so said, just don't eat that one tree. And that's where he felt it, he succumbed to the temptation to eat from that one tree that was forbidden. So he could have eaten from all the other trees and had a really good life. And he succumbed to the temptation to eat from that one tree. Same thing with Haman. Haman was the prime minister over 127 countries. Imagine how many millions of people he effectively ruled over. And there was one Yid. So millions of people were bowing down. He walked in the street, millions of people constantly bowing down to him. Millions. Millions of people constantly bowing. There was one Yid, Mordechai Tzaddik, if you work out, he was in the first place. I mean, he must have been over 90. He must have been over 90 at the time. And he didn't bow down to Haman. What's the big deal? Imagine somebody today walks in the street, any celebrity, there's always somebody who's going to hate you, yeah? And you got millions of people bowing, and one old Yid, he's 90 years old, big deal. You know, if he'd have been sensible, he would just ignored it. Same if Adam Rishon wouldn't have succumbed to the Yetzirah, would just ignored the Eitzadas, everything would have been fine, hunky dory. He comes home, he says to his wife, my life's not worth living. My wife's not worth living. Because this one old Yid doesn't want to bow down to me. I've got millions of people bowing down to me, and one Yid, I can't. My life's not worth living. So Hal said, this is the nature of Amalek. You look around in life, we've got Hashem blessed that everybody should bench with all the bracha in the world, yeah? That's human nature. When you got one little thing wrong, there's one little small thing that's bothering us, we tend to focus on it, and that is Amalek. A person can be blessed with all the brachas in the world, and then say, you know what? Go on, give me an example. You got one little thing that's bothering you, your neighbor didn't cut his hedge, whatever, yeah? Gets my nerves and that, or some little small thing. You think of all the dozens and dozens of things we can thank Hashem for, and then we tend to focus, it's too much for me, I can't handle it. That is the essence of Amalek. Amalek is not a nation. Amalek is a concept. So Adam Rishon was in Gan Eden. He could eat from all the trees. And the one thing that he wasn't supposed to do, he could have focused on all the things he could do. There's one thing that he couldn't do, and that's the thing he fell for. Haman was the same thing. He had all these people showing respect and bowing down to him. He said, my life's not worth living because people's mark is not bowing down to me. So that is the concept, and that's what we have to wipe out. We have to annihilate that concept of Amalek. Chazal tell us Amalek should be kibbutz, Amalek that's within us. So what we have to annihilate is not the nation of Amalek, it's the concept of Amalek. And that's why Mibin Ranosh Shaham learned the Torah the grandchildren of Amalek were allowed to learn Torah because they cleansed themselves from the concept of Amalek. And the reason we had to wipe them out was because in those days the nations were built on ideologies, right? And if we had had anything to do with Amalek or tolerance in one bit, then it would have crept into us. So let's look into the idea of racism, xenophobia, and the Torah view. Racism, as everybody knows, is the denigration of otherness. You know, he's no good because of the color of his skin, or because where he comes from, or whatever. A xenophobia means I fear him because he looks different to me. He supports a different football team, or whatever. Is that you don't like somebody because he wears a red shirt and I wear a blue shirt. That is racism. Xenophobia. The Torah view is the exact opposite. It's nothing to do with what other people do or what other people are. It's to do with us. So Hashem's telling us, don't have anything to do with Amalek, wipe out the whole idea. Because if this idea enters Klal Yisrael, then there won't be a Klal Yisrael. We won't be Hashem's special people anymore. If we start focusing on a little bits of negativity when we're surrounded with so much positivity, we won't be a Klal Yisrael anymore. So that's why Hashem says, wipe out Amalek. So if you've got a case of Amalek, that a grandchild of Amalek that's managed to cleanse himself from all this negativity, they can come Gerim, they can come Tzaddikim as well. Nero himself, he caused so much damage, he killed so many Yidden, and then he was accepted as a Ger Tzedek. It's just unbelievable. Imagine if Hitler would have turned around at the end of the Second World War. Because you know what, I regret what I did. I want to become a Yid. That's what happened with Nero, right? It's happening. Because it's the concept, it's not the thing. So if we go back to Moavi and Mitzri, so Mitzri, right? I vaguely remember last year we spoke about the idea of a Akras Tov. Akras Tov means recognizing the good that somebody gets you. If somebody offers you a chair, the smallest thing that somebody does for you, you have to always remember and thank them for it, right? So the Mitzrim, they were terribly cruel to us. They butchered us. They enslaved us. They whipped us. But Hashem tells us, watch it. He says, do not despise a Mitzri. Why? He carries me. You sojourned in his land. So they looked after us somewhat. They did us a little bit of Torah. They gave us bread and water, whatever the minimum amount they gave. So when the Torah tells us to look at other nations, it's all about us. It's all about how we must preserve our midas. So if you look at Mitzri, don't despise him, because whatever bad he did to you, remember there was a team with exactly some Amalek. he did a little bit good to you, so don't despise him for it. Imagine how hard it was for the Eden. They're 40 years after this terrible, it was a Holocaust that went on in Israel. I mean, 4/5 of the Eden were killed. And and Hashem says, don't despise them because there's that tiny bit of good that they had. Exact opposite of Amalek. The tiny bit of good, don't despise them. And now if we go to now if we go back to Moav, how did Moav become how does Rus become the matriarch of the royal family? So the Pasuk, it's very interesting how we said before. The Pasuk says, Al they didn't give us bread and water, which we didn't need anyway, right? That's the main reason why you must imagine them. And also they try to annihilate you. Now the Gemara says, and there's another thing Rashi mentions that the female the female of him seduced the Eden, and they cause a terrible destruction in Yiddishkeit. And the halacha is, we say, we mustn't marry a male person from Moav, but we're allowed to marry somebody, a female from Moav. Obviously, that's how Rus was accepted as a Gyoris. Why is that? The females caused us a lot more trouble than the males. So why should we be allowed to marry the females and not the other way around? The answer is that it's not in the nature of females to go out and welcome people, because in those days the women stayed at home. But the fact that the Moav didn't come out and welcome after bread and water, don't forget they're descended from Lot. And Avraham Avinu, the uncle, fought so hard and sacrificed so much just to save Lot. He went out to war. He went to war just to save Lot. It should have been passed down from generation to generation that whenever you see a Yid, offer him a thank you. I didn't have the basic decency to come. It's not that we needed the bread and water. If they don't have the basic decency to acknowledge something, a small thing, not a small thing, it was a huge thing, to acknowledge the favor that they were done, they can't be accepting Klal Yisrael, because that would damage the midas of Klal Yisrael. The women, they did something bad, but that was like, how can we put it? It's kind of more natural, yeah? It's just bad behavior. But this was a complete, they obviously hadn't been talking about Avraham Avinu all the generations, otherwise they were saw Eden going past, they would have welcomed them in. And the fact that they didn't means they didn't have any Akaras type. So Amalek is the idea that you always focus on the little bit of negativity, blow it out, and ruin everything. Yiddishkeit is the opposite. You focus on the smallest bit of positivity, blow it out, and make everything good. You look at the Yidden after the war, when they came out of the camps, and look, what's been built up since the war. The shuls and the yeshivas, and we could have just given up. And there was how many Yiddens, about a third of our nation was destroyed. And Baruch Hashem, you go to Israel, and you go to all over the world, and you see it's just Yiddishkeit thriving. It's all because we started with a little tiny. I once had a story of the Bob of Rebbe's family bracha. After the war, he was brutally treated. He was all bandaged up, and the first Yom Kippur, he was running around to get a minion in the DP camp. He got a minion, and they all cried. It was terrible. And then when he came to America a few years later, many years later, one of the people that was in his minion came to him on Yom Kippur, and he had like 2,000 people there. He says, "This is what we cried for." They didn't give up. They had a little bit of good. Can you imagine how negative they felt? I had a little bit of good, and they built on it. And alhamdulillah for those Amalek. So now it doesn't need any explaining. What happened on October the 7th? They just found a little bit of little point where they could cause damage to Eden, yeah, and they caused so much trouble to the whole world. It caused so much trouble. If you look at the ideologies of our enemies, yeah, it's all about destroying, hating. But Yiddishkeit is the opposite. There's no racism in Yiddishkeit. It's all about destroying concepts and always focusing on the positive, even however small it is, rather than focusing on the negative. Let's be zeicher that we should vanquish all these negative ideas. Oh, just one more thing. The Klausenberg Rebbe, when he was, unfortunately, he was also very treated terribly in the camps. Apparently, his wife and 11 children were killed in front of him. And when he came, he was beaten terribly. There's all this books written about him. When he came out of, I don't want to sound racist here now. When he came out of the camps, he said that the tumah of Amalek, the wickedness, the evil of Amalek, has been exalted by Esau, because the wickedness has just been too much. He said this before 1948. He said that now it's gone over to Ishmael. That cruelty, that evil, that focus on negativity has gone over to Ishmael. It was always the Ruach HaKodesh because not that we hate anybody, we don't hate Ishmaelim. We hate the concept of this negativity, this idea of denigrating others. It's because we hate racism so much that we can't mix with all these people. But if they cleanse themselves of their bad midas, they're welcome to come in. Maybe all the enemies, we say, all the wicked people in the world should turn to Hashem. And then Hashem, we should see Mashiach. And we're the only good in the world. No,
Rabbi Chanani Makasha Marasa Hakadosh Baruch Hu Zakol Zalficha Fir Bal Hem Tov because in the modern life Fabes Lemansiko Yakil so you are the